Alright guys, so I got some exciting news, or at least it's exciting to me. Got an upgrade on my pressure washer. So upgraded equipment. It's not a cheap purchase, so I definitely look at this as an investment. This pressure washer, I don't know if you watched one of my videos that I made in the beginning, but so this is the pressure washer that I use the majority of the time. This is what I use on vehicles, and well, I've even used it to do some light surface cleaning, and I did cleaned a one-story house with it. So, but I got a really good deal on this thing off a guy on Craigslist. Paid $100 for it, and I had to drive a couple hours to go get it, but it was worth it because now I asked him, of course, if it worked, actually worked before I drove out there, and of course he said yes, because at $100 I figured just the engine, this Honda GX160 in the frame is worth $100 all day long as as the engine's good. And it's hard to kill one of these engines. I mean, if you change the oil, even just once a year, change the oil, it's hard to kill one of these. They're that good. If you have a pressure washer, you want a Honda engine. And what I'm about to show you, if you're going to invest in a pressure washer that you're going to use for your business, you want a Honda engine, and you want a Cat pump. There it is, world leader in triplex pumps. These guys, as far as pumps go, high pressure pumps, Cat pump is where it's at. Now, what I was saying about when the guy said that the pressure washer works, I figured that there was something wrong with the pump from the get-go. So, I expected that going into it. And, if the pump worked and I was able to just go straight to using the pressure washer, that's great. But, and when I got out there, the guy actually hooked the hose pipe up. That's right, he hooked the hose pipe up. And so I fired before I fired up, I just happened to notice there was no oil in the pump. Normally, I probably wouldn't even have checked that. I would just, you assume guy's gonna have oil in the pump if he's been using it. But I remember the guy had told me before I came out there that he did have an issue where water was shooting out of the pump, and he said he had a guy rebuild the pump. So that's why I checked, and so I just assumed the guy that rebuilt it, because the guy I bought it from, he said that he had not used the pressure washer since the guy rebuilt it. He said the guy that rebuilt it told him that everything was good, but he didn't actually test it himself, so that's what he said. So that's why I made sure I wanted to test it before I bought it. But even if the pump didn't work, like I said, I would have paid $100 for the engine and the frame. But so I end up having some oil with me, put some oil in the pump, and then we fired it up, and a little bit of water came out, and then it stopped, and then it was just spitting water out just a little bit at a time. Long story short, we ended up spending about an hour and a half. Me and my buddy spent about an hour and a half messing with that pump, taking it, different things apart, and it was just boggling my mind the way it was acting. Come to find out, the water wasn't turned on to the hose pipe. Now, like I said, the guy that was selling the pressure washer, he hooked up the hose pipe, so I just assumed that he would turn the water on. Evidently not. So anyhow, come to find out that the pump worked. And now I had a pressure gauge with me, and although it wasn't putting out 3,000 psi, normally they don't. Normally, whatever it says it's rated for, most of these pressure washers, it's not going to actually put that out. If you put a test gauge on it, it's not actually putting that out. Now that pump, I think, was putting like maybe close to 2,300 psi out, but that was just fine. I was just happy that the thing worked, you know. So I was using it that way with that pump that came on it for a while. Now it did develop shortly after I got it, had a real bad oil leak. It was leaking oil out of the rear main oil, and I mean bad, to the point where I basically had to put oil in it every time I used it. Now that was kind of a hassle, so you know, I knew, I went ahead and ordered the rear main oil seal, and then while I was at it, I went ahead and ordered the high pressure seals and the oil piston guide oil seals. You know, so if I was going to take the pump off and mess with it, I was going to go ahead and replace those two, and replacing those would probably bring the pressure up a little bit. So a couple days ago, I took that pump off, replaced the rear main oil seal. That went good. Well, then I went to take the manifold off, which is this part here, and or this whole brass section. Went to take that off because that's where your high pressure seals are, and you know, piston guide oil seals. So went to take that off, and oh, by the way, I had a buddy of mine there with me, and you know, he was helping. Now I didn't need his help, but he was there helping nonetheless, just hanging out. Well, in order to take that apart, that manifold, the pressure relief valve on that one, which is this one, you had to take off in order to do what I needed to do. Well, it was on there really tight, and I didn't catch my buddy in time, and he took the crescent wrench, and I guess he tried to break it loose at first, couldn't get it. So then I see him, you know, it was too late, but I see him take his hand and start hammering on it, and you know, right before I could say stop, it broke off. And so the threads broke off inside of it, and you know, that even if I could have drilled it out and retapped it, because there was no way I was going to extract that sleeve. It was like welded in there. It's why it broke, you know, along with him hammering on it. But anyways, even if I drilled it out and tapped it, that thermal relief valve, you can't just go down to Ace, you know, or Lowe's, Home Depot, and pick one of those up. They don't stock them. So I had to order it from the same place I ordered all the seals off the internet, and you know, that might take a week or so to get here because I'm not paying $30 for shipping. But the part itself was like $10. So, you know, $10 part, and you know, fix the pump. Now, drilling that out and tapping it is not as easy as it sounds. I could go into that, but I know this video is already long enough, so just trust me on that. You know, to a degree, you got to know what you're doing and be lucky. I've drilled things out and tapped them out before. This situation is just slightly different. So, because you cannot drill it any bigger, because you can't just upsize that part, that thermal relief valve. So, anyhow, you know, to say all that, I have to, you know, without that pump. Now, I do have my other pressure washer, the big 4,200 PSI DeWalt, but I really didn't want to use that. You know, I'm trying to keep the wear and tear off of it because that pump and all its parts are so expensive. And it's just, you know, it's too much pressure for cars. Matter of fact, I had an issue where a guy helping me took the paint off a car, and that cost me about $600. So it's another reason, if I've got somebody help me, I do not want them touching that pressure washer. So that's why I liked having a lower pressure washer, so I don't have to worry about, you know, handing the gun to somebody helping me to spray the vehicle off. So anyhow, I guess what I'm getting at is it was an excuse for me to go ahead and get a cat pump, because it probably would have been about $250 to buy the same kind of pump that was on there, which was a AAA, or even one similar to it, you know, an AR, General Pump, whatever. And so for $350, I could get a cat pump, which is well worth the extra money. I mean, well worth it. On average, these things are supposed to last 5 times longer than any of your other pumps, you know, your good pumps, General Pump, and, you know, so yeah, it's well worth the money. So I put it on there today. Now I will say this frame, this DeWalt frame, I wasn't able to just bolt this pump right on, because the way this manifold comes out pretty far here to the right, and then, you know, this goes straight out, it was hitting, I couldn't mount the pump up because it was hitting up against this frame. So what I had to do was take the engine off and scoot it over, you know, a good 3 inches, re-drill 4 new holes, and bolt it back on there in order to get this pump to fit. And, you know, you can see I've got a little bit of clearance there. You know, I wanted a little bit of clearance, so it didn't, you know, I didn't have to worry about it vibrating up against something, because this thing will definitely vibrate once running. But so anyways, just a few minutes ago I got to fire it up for the first time and use it. I actually need to pull that out. I'm glad I caught that. It's the vent that you're supposed to pull out before you use it. So anyhow, now I've got a pressure gauge you can see in there, and like I said, that other pump was putting out about 2,300 psi, actually probably closer to 2,000 there towards the end, because when I did take that pump apart, man, there was a lot of grit in there, and it was wearing on those seals fast. So, you know, the guy that was using it, I know he was using it in a construction environment. He didn't have a filter on it, and so that's what happens. You know, you get all that grit inside the pump, and it will wear those seals out super quick. So just in the short time, you know, 4 months, 5 months that I was using it, you know, it wore those seals down pretty quick. So anyways, what I'm gonna do for you, I know this video is pretty long, but real quick, I just want to show you. I'm gonna start it up and let y'all see what it's running pressure at, and you know, I'll tell you a little bit about that. Now I will say, when I first started this thing, started running it, this was, you know, a thing I wondered about. This is a GX 160, not the 200, and so this pump says it's rated for 5.5 horsepower to 6.5 or maybe 7 horsepower. So I wondered if it was going to strain this engine, because the other pump did not. This was enough engine for the other pump. It was sized right, basically. So I just wondered about that. And when I first started up, it was actually, you know, it was bogging down the engine. It was pulling pretty hard, and I was like, man, you know, it's not what I wanted to hear. Well, I kept running it for a few minutes, and I mean, it's like it corrected itself, you know, like it adjusted to it. So, you know, hopefully it was just the engine was cold, but anyhow, it seems to be doing real good now. So I'm gonna put the video on pause. I'm gonna fire this up and let y'all see it. All right, guys, I know it's gonna be super noisy, but I'm just gonna show y'all this real quick. As you can see, with me not pulling the trigger, now it's got a leak. That gauge's got a leak, so what it's doing is it's coming down, then see, it'll kick up. It's close to 3,500 psi when you're not on the trigger. But when you're on the trigger, and listen to this thing. So that's what's so impressive about this. This pump is actually rated at 2750 psi with 2.5 gallons a minute. That's the thing about Cat pumps that I love, is they do not underrate or overrate, excuse me, their pumps. If anything, they underrate them. So what they say it'll put out, as long as you match the engine up right, and like I said, this is on the small side of the engine. You can match it up with a bigger engine than this, like a GX200, 6.5 horse. That's the thing. Y'all seen it while I'm on the trigger. You know, it was over 3,000 psi, and it's definitely putting out that 2.5 gallon a minute. You can hear it. So that was another thing, is that other pump, I don't think it was quite putting out 2.5 gallon a minute. So anyhow, yeah, I just wanted to share that, because, you know, for anybody else out there, I know this applies to people that are not even detailing, people that want to just surface clean or clean houses. Like I said, with the 1-story house or clean concrete, you could definitely, with this pump, with this setup, that engine, that pump, you could definitely do some surface cleaning easily, because I was doing it with, you know, around 2,000 psi and probably less than 2.5 gallon a minute. So this would definitely work. But even for pressure washing, guys, and I'll say this real quick, you know, if you don't have the money to spend on a Honda engine, Harbor Freight has their Predator engines, I believe, and they've got a 6.5 horsepower that it's like a clone of this Honda engine right here, and they run it on sale with a coupon for $99 all the time. And I'll tell you right now, I've thought about building one. You know, if it wasn't for me having this engine right here, well, I can tell you this: if this engine would have been too small for that pump, that's exactly what I would have went and done. I'd have went and bought that Predator 6.5 horsepower engine for $99, and I'd have put this Cat pump on it. And I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about those Predator engines. A lot of people have reviews on them online, using them for go-karts and different things. So I just wanted to show you all this, and, you know, show you, you know, the pressure and everything. But I will definitely make another video later on after I've got some hours on this thing, and do an actual good review on it. So tell you how it's holding up and everything, because I imagine it's gonna work flawlessly. But so that's it for now, guys. I'm about to make another video on this is my mother's Cadillac right here, SUV. Probably gonna make a comparison again using Adams rubber and tire cleaner versus Super Clean. And then I've got the Nano Skin, you know, scrub or wash mitt clay mitt. Probably gonna make a video on that as well. So y'all look out for those. But for this video, that's it. Y'all be good.